What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy, and today we're doing something a little bit different. It's still fantasy football, but this time for the UEFA Champions League. This is my team selection for Matchday 1. Depending on how popular these videos are, I may do one a week for every single match day, but let's see how things go. Because this is the first video I've done on the Champions League on this channel, I'm going to go through a few of the basics, then we're going to look at the team itself. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here as well. And a big shout out to 1105 who helped me on Twitter with some of the planning for this video. I'll put a link to his Twitter account in the description below if you want to give him a follow. So the league code is on screen. Again, there'll be links to that in the description below as well. If you're used to playing FPL, I'm going to go through some of the differences. So in FPL, you have game weeks, right? Game week 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 38 of them. In this, they're called match days. So it does get a little bit confusing, but that's what they're called. You can make substitutions and captaincy changes on different days within a match day, right? So we've all watched the Champions League. Some of the matches are on Tuesday, some of the matches are on Wednesday. So if you've got some players that don't perform well on Tuesday, and on your bench you've got players that play on Wednesday, you can swap them in and you can change your captaincy if you're not happy with the score that you've got. So it's worth picking players from different days so that you can make that change, right? So if every one of your players does really well on Tuesday, it might be that you don't make any substitutions, but you need the option to be there, and you'll see how I've thought about that with the team that I've got. There's 2 transfers per match day during the groups. As you get into the latter stages, you get a few more transfers. There's also only 3 players per club, like in FPL. But again, as you get to the latter stages where there's less teams to choose from, you can then start picking more players. You can have like 4 or 5 all from the same team, right? There's only 2 chips. You've got 1 wild card. That works exactly the same as in FPL. You can change your whole team. That team is then set until you obviously then make transfers. You've also got a limitless chip, which if you play FPL is like the free hit chip. So you change your whole team for 1 week only, then it reverts back to what it was before. The big difference and why it's called limitless is because the budget is unlimited, right? So you can get any players you want in. Money does not matter. There's a few other kind of scoring changes as well. So additional points for goals scored outside the box, winning penalties, conceding penalties, ball recoveries and stuff like that. But not a huge amount of difference to how you're used to playing with FPL. So I thought I'd talk through a little bit about my strategy. I think those of you that have played Champions League fantasy football quite a lot will probably be on something similar. But essentially, although Champions League basically lasts for the whole season, there's much fewer rounds than there are in kind of FPL. So obviously you have 38 game weeks. In this, there's only really 10 match days. So you've got the 6 match days during the group stages, the round of 16, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals and the finals. So it pays to be a bit more aggressive with your chips, right? So for any of you that have played Euro fantasy or World Cup fantasy, the same thing kind of applies. And the reason for that is the group stages is when you have the most amount of weak teams left in the competition, and therefore there should be some bigger scores. Once you get to like the quarters, the semis and the final, you've got the strongest teams, and those heavy scorelines are not likely to happen as often. They can happen, of course, but there's less likelihood of that being the case, right? So it pays to be aggressive. So I will probably use my limitless chip in match day 2 and then my wild card in match day 3. That essentially makes the match day 1 team that I'm picking right now for this video a 1 week only team. Essentially, it's a free hit, right? I only need it for this week because by match day 3, I almost said game week then. Match day 3, I'm going to wild card and use my limitless in match day 2. Now, the interesting thing about match day 3 and 4 are clubs play the same fixtures twice, right? So they play once at home, once away. And therefore, if you get a team that's got a really good fixture in match day 3, they've also got a really good fixture in match day 4. So it's a pretty nice time to wildcard. And also after that, you start maybe getting a bit of rotation when some of the stronger teams are through. And obviously you can use transfers around that. So it might not be the absolute best strategy, but I think it looks like a pretty good one. And it's probably what I'll go for. And also, just to kind of reiterate again, you need captaincy and subs on both days within a match day, right? So you want some players on Tuesday and some on Wednesday, just in case things go bad the first day, and then you can sub them in, essentially. Now, before we go picking a team, we need to know who the strongest teams are and who the weakest teams are, because we want to pick players from the stronger teams to obviously target the weaker teams. And I know on paper, for a lot of you, it's going to look really obvious. The likes of Bayern Munich, Man City, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona, they're going to be the strongest teams. Everyone else is going to be a bit weaker. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watch all the leagues outside of the Premier League, because I just don't, right? So this is a pretty good website called 538, where they have something called a Soccer Power Index to give us an idea of who the strongest strongest teams are. And obviously, as you'd imagine, right, you can order it from the SPI, which is the Soccer Power Index, to see who the top teams are. You can do it by offense, you can do it by defense as well, and you can also order it by group. So you can take a look. There's a few interesting things in here. Ajax, for example, above Spurs and Chelsea, only just. I think the biggest interesting thing here, when you go to the weakest team, so Maccabi Haifa, you got Pilsen there as well, Copenhagen, Shakhtar Donetsk, etc. Juventus aren't very high up. They're just behind Rangers. And look, maybe some of you who watch Serie A and stuff this year, you know that, but I would never have guessed that. I just always have Juventus as one of those teams that are right up there. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watch all the leagues outside of the Premier League, so I don't. So that's one thing to look at. And then you can go to the matches on the Champions League fantasy page and see who is playing when. So for example, right, the bottom kind of 5 clubs, Dynamo Zagreb, Shakhtar Donetsk, Copenhagen, Pilsen and Maccabi Haifa. So on match day 1, in the first day, so on Tuesday, Benfica play Maccabi Haifa, Dortmund have got Copenhagen. These are teams, especially when I only need this team for match day 1, that I want to target. Leipzig have got Shakhtar Donetsk, and then if you go on to the second day in match day 1, so the Wednesday, Barcelona have got Pilsen. So that's definitely a match that I want to kind of target, right, where I want at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 players from. So I'll leave a link in the description below to this website. I know you won't all agree with this, and you won't agree on the order the teams are in, but again, it's a very useful way of getting an idea of who the strongest teams in the group are. You can order it from who's going to make the round of 16. You can also look at it from a group perspective. So Liverpool the strongest, then Ajax, then Napoli, then obviously Rangers at the bottom, and then match that up with the fixtures you want to go for. If you're not going to use your chips early on, and I don't know, maybe you're not going to wildcard till match day 3 and you don't want to use your limitless chip straight away in match day 2, then obviously you need to take a look at the matches in match day 1 and match day 2 combined, so you can get an idea of which players you want to target. But for my strategy, I'm probably just going to use essentially match day 1 as a free hit and just target those much easier fixtures. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's take a look at the team that I've currently built for match day 1. There might be some changes ahead of the deadline if we get early team news and stuff like that, or I just want to play around with the side a little bit more, because I was just going to make this and then just leave it, but I've already been tinkering around quite a lot with the team. The one you see on screen is just an autofill team, right, which I've just removed all the players from, and I'm going to start building it as I talk through what the squad looks like. So we're going to start with goalkeepers. I've got my list over here. So, and by the way, I've got to already apologise for any mispronunciations, right, because I'm definitely going to get some names wrong. I can't even get all the names in the Premier League right, so let alone in the Champions League. But the first goalkeeper in is Gribic. So hopefully I've pronounced that right. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a long-term pick, but it does look like Oblak is going to be out for the first game at least. So he's in, and he also plays, if we come down to the match days, on the Wednesday, right? So he plays against Porto. So it's not necessarily the greatest fixture, but it's still a pretty good option for just 4 million euro in this case, not pounds. So he's in. And then I've gone pretty high on Benfica versus Maccabi Haifa. I've actually got 3 of their players in. So I've got their goalkeeper, who is pronounced, let's go for this, Vlachodimos. We'll go with that. He's my other goalkeeper, so he'll play on the Tuesday. And then if he doesn't get I should probably scroll down a bit. If he doesn't get a clean sheet or anything like that, and I'm not happy with the points, then I'll switch to Gribic as my other goalkeeper for Atletico as well. Then you got the defence. Now I'm going to put in 2 players from Chelsea. So Reece James goes straight in, and Chilwell, because they are playing against Dynamo Zagreb on Tuesday. Now the interesting thing is, the deadline is at 5:45, so 5:45 in the evening. The first matches for both Chelsea and Dortmund are also at 5:45, so we will have those lineups. So if Chilwell's not playing and it's Cucurella instead, I can either switch to Cucurella or I can just go for someone different. And as you'll see in a minute, I've got a few Dortmund players in as well, so if they miss out for whatever reason, I can just quickly adapt and change to someone else. But I quite like having both Chilwell and James. We know how attacking they can be, and they've got a pretty decent fixture, so they are in. Then we've got my second player from Benfica, which is Otamendi, who's only 4.5 million. So he looks like a pretty decent option. Again, I don't know if that is a player that you would want for like the short to long term if you're not using your chips early. But for me, with that strategy that I've got with Maccabi Haifa in match day 1, he's definitely in there. So I've gone for the double defence. I've got 1 defender, 1 goalkeeper. Then we've got a Paris Saint-Germain player in there as well. Now the interesting thing is, again, when I see that on paper against Juventus, it doesn't look that good, but when I go back to those strength ratings from 538, Paris Saint-Germain against Juventus looks pretty good. So I've got Mendes in there as a wing back. Should play. So hopefully he does well. He's in, right? So he's playing left wing back. He's a bit cheaper than Hakimi on the other side. I think Hakimi is 6 million, whereas Mendes is only... Yeah, Hakimi's 6 million. Mendes is only 5 million, so that's why he's in. Obviously, you've got Ramos at 5 million as well. Could be an option, but I want to go for more of the attacking threat. And then my last one is from Dortmund. So that is... let me just put him up here. That is... Dortmund, if we can find that here. Let's click on that. I can't even click on the button. Defender. And it is Guerrero at 4.5 million. Now, someone I was chatting to before I started recording this video did say he has been ill, but it is one of those fixtures where we will get the lineup ahead of the deadline. So as long as he is playing, he will be in the team, right? 4.5 million just seems like a pretty good option. And again, they are playing Copenhagen in Matchday 1 on the Tuesday, right? So that's a pretty good option. We'll do the midfield next, because I think in this kind of game, the forwards are really where the big points are at. I think in FPL, defence and midfield can definitely get you some points, and it can in this as well. But the forwards are really the big guns, because a lot of the players like Salah and that are all forwards, right? So there's only 3 spots and only so many players, or there's lots of players to pick from, I should say. So in midfield, I have got Nkunku. Very highly rated, right? Everyone's talking about him. There was lots of rumours that he would go, not necessarily in the summer, but in January and last year as well. He's 9 million for Leipzig. They are playing Shakhtar Donetsk. So again, you go back to the ratings, that's one of the weakest teams in the Champions League. So he's in for 9 million. And also, it's kind of difficult to fill out the midfield spots because all those players that maybe in FPL would be listed as midfielders are listed as forwards in this, right? So getting good players in midfield can be difficult. So he's in there for that reason. I think 9 million is pretty good. Then you've got Royce at Dortmund as well. Again, for that good fixture, he should be the penalty taker as well, as far as I know. And then talking about penalty takers, we've also got João Mario for Benfica. So that puts my 3 Benfica players all playing Maccabi Haifa in the side. Attacking player, 6 million, fairly cheap. He's only 0.5 million more than Jorginho. I know that he's a fairly popular player in fantasy because obviously he's on Champions League fantasy, that is. He's on penalties, of course. We assume he's going to keep penalties this year. Obviously, they got a few new signings, but I think he probably will. I think he might have already taken one in the Premier League. And he does get like a lot of ball recoveries and stuff like that. So he has got a few more ways to points than maybe he does in FPL. But for 0.5 million more to get Benfica's more attacking player, who's also the penalty taker, as far as I know, he is in the side. And then I'm just looking at the rest. Okay, so the other 2 players are my Wednesday players. So if my team doesn't do well on the Tuesday, I want some players that can come in. You got Bergwijn for Ajax, who's already started really well in the league. So he's in there. He's just 7 million. And then this one, again, I already did the shout out to 11ify earlier on. Got to shout him out again for this pick, which is Ferran Torres. Now, I don't think we're going to see him regularly starting throughout the season necessarily in the league without injuries and stuff. But there was a good tweet that I saw. I'll try and find it and link it in the description below, that said it looks like he will start that first game. And obviously against it's Barcelona against Pilsen first game. There should be a lot of goals in that. So for 7 million, Ferran Torres, he's probably not going to be an option in this format of the game for most of the season, or for most of the rounds of the Champions League. But for this week, Matchday 1, he should be pretty good. So for 7 million, I'm going to trust 11ify, right? Hopefully he's watching this, and he's in there as well. And then you've got the most interesting picks, the forwards. And if I kind of bring up the whole list here, so if I click forwards, you can see why it's such an issue to just pick 3, right? You've got Benzema, Lewandowski, Mbappe, Müller, Nunez, obviously, for Liverpool, Griezmann. There's loads in there. Messi as well, Werner. So I've actually gone for Werner. He's only 8 million. He's already scoring a few goals for Leipzig. Obviously, didn't do really very well at Chelsea, but he's already gone back to the German league and is doing well. And again, it's that double up with Nkunku, hopefully I've got that right, for the first game when they play Shakhtar Donetsk. So again, whether I have that double up going forward, it seems unlikely, but for that price, he is in the team. Fingers crossed, right? The other 2... I have gone for another PSG player, but I've gone for Neymar. Again, it's kind of a price thing. As far as I know, he's still on penalties. I know there was a game where Mbappe took one. I think he might have missed, and I think Neymar took the next one after that. But as far as I know, from a list I looked up before I started recording, Neymar should still be the first choice penalty taker. And obviously, any of those attackers in that team, Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, there's always going to be points, goals and assists. And although, again, the fixture on paper, if I just scroll down, doesn't necessarily look amazing, Juventus are right down there in terms of kind of the strength of the teams in the competition. So I think, given that PSG are so strong themselves, I've got a couple of their players in, Neymar and Mendes as well. If he was a bit more expensive, like 11 or 12, then I probably would just go for someone else. But because he's 10 million, I feel like he's like, I know 10 million you can't really say is value, but I feel like he could be value at that price. So he's in as well. And then the last spot, I have got 11 million to spend. It's going to be Lewandowski. And the reason for that, I'm going to show you now. If I just go to next and confirm those transfers, this is what the team looks like. And you can see the fixtures there. But the thing you want to do is click on the date. So you see some of them are playing on the 6th of September and some are playing on the 7th of September. So I want to sub out my goalkeeper for obviously this goalkeeper, right? There's no one else I can sub for. Just confirm that. And then all the players, again, if I just... So there's a button here at the bottom called date. It just shows the date instead. So you can see all my players in the team are playing on the 6th of September. And whichever ones don't do well, I can just transfer these players in. And because I'm playing a 5 at the back on the first day, any of these attackers can come in for any of these defenders. And you've got to assume that at least one of those midfielders or forwards won't do that well. So having Bergwijn for Ajax against, who was it on Matchday 1? I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head. Rangers. And then obviously having Torres, who hopefully will start, and Lewandowski, who will also hopefully start against Pilsen. And then the Atletico Madrid keeper for just 4 million seems pretty good. And again, just to reiterate, as long as the plan works, I only need this team for Matchday 1, because then I'm going to use the Limitless chip in Matchday 2 and the wildcard in Matchday 3, where I can just completely change the team and just focus on the fixtures for Matchday 3 and 4. So for example, if we go to Matchday 3, Bayern are playing Pilsen, so of course... They'll also play them in Matchday 4 on the Wednesday, right? So that's kind of handy. And I think... Yeah, Paris Saint-Germain is not the team. Who is it? Yeah, Juventus against Maccabi Haifa as well. So if they're starting to look good, we could go for some of their options against Maccabi Haifa in Matchday 3, because they'll also play them in Matchday 4. But that is what the team is looking like as it stands right now. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you think any of those players are just not going to play, or whether there's better options for the same price. I'm going to keep a keen eye out for the lineups for both Dortmund and Chelsea, just to see if I need to make any changes ahead of the deadline. Otherwise, I think it's looking pretty good. If you've enjoyed this Champions League fantasy football video, make sure to give it a like if you want to see more. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Whether you like FPL, Champions League, World Cup fantasy, we're going to cover it all on this channel. And if this video does well and you want to see more, maybe I'll do a video for Matchday 2 as well. I'm not promising anything, but you never know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you again soon.